Okay, so let's start then. Yesterday, I covered a bit of how to create a variable, how to print the value of the variable, and then two data types, that is integer and string. And after that, we played around with string because string has got many functions available where you can extract things out of a long string. And today I will also continue the same thing because string is little um, complex in the sense like how many functions we have over there. So let's see how um, we can manipulate the string and play with the string in a bit more manner. So let me recap on how you can use the Visual Studio. So those who are for the first time will have the idea how to use the Visual Studio, because that's important part of the Python learning, how you can use the editor to do the coding. Okay, so you have the Python installed in your machine, and then you have the Visual Studio Code installed. You can use the notepad, simple notepad which comes with Windows, to write Python code. Nothing stops you over there, but the Visual Studio Code gives you an ability to have a syntax highlighting, and then the spelling check. If you are using any library and miss any parameter value, it'll also tell you about all those things. So you will get to see more about that in a moment. But let me show you another way of opening up the Visual Studio Code within a folder. Okay, so I have created a folder here. So let me show you the folder first in the Windows Explorer. Okay, so you can see that I have a folder called Python, and I have today's day folder inside that Python folder, and I have a file. So let's assume that you don't have this file. Okay, so if you don't have this file, let me close the already open Visual Studio Code. Now there are a couple of ways by which you can open a Visual Studio Code. Now I will show you one way, and then I'll show you other way in other days. But if you just go inside that folder, now how do you go inside that folder? There is a small trick available. Let me show you that. So you come to the Windows Explorer and type cmd. If you type that, then the command prompt opens in the same path. Okay, so you see that I'm in the same path. I don't have to type the whole path by myself. So you are inside, and then you type code dot. This essentially will open the Visual Studio Code in your desktop. So you can see the Visual Studio Code is going to get opened in the screen, and then it will load that folder. Because we don't have a file inside the folder, you will not see any, let's say, of the files open in the general editor screen. So let me put it in the full screen mode. Okay. So let me close this, and you can see that I don't have any file here. So to create a file, you can create from here. You can just click on this plus icon, and I say second.py. Okay, so the Python file has an extension .py. So that's how the Python identifies that it's a Python code, right? So the file will get created, and then once the file is created, it will open up in the Visual Studio Code as the edit, ready to edit kind of mode, and then here you can start writing the code. So that's where I will start the today's class. Okay, so what we have learned in our last class is how to declare a string variable. So let me declare a variable called str and give a name. Okay, so I'll say hello world, and this string is created within a variable str. The value in the right hand side get assigned to the left hand side. That's how the variable assignment happens. And Python doesn't require you to explicitly say that what is the type of the variable. You need to provide the value. As soon as you provide the value, then the type is decided. Okay, so this is decided as type string because it is a text character. Okay, so anything which is text, both digit and number together, can be considered as string. So it's a more generic format of a data type, and that's why it is so complex, in the sense like there are multiple possibilities available by which you can play around with this thing. So let me quickly show you how to print that so that we can recap what we have done in the last class. Now there are a couple of ways by which I can run it. So I am writing this file into my Visual Studio Code to a specific path. If I go to that path and type Python, that is Py or Python or Python 3 depending on how it runs, and then the file name, then it shows what is the output, expected output. In this case, it is the hello world which I wanted to print, and it is printing. So you can see that I'm now out of Visual Studio in another window, that is Windows command prompt, to run this. Now this is quite inconvenient if you are running it quite frequently. Now Visual Studio Code gives you integrated development experience. That's why we call it IDE. And one of the features it also provides is that the same command prompt which you can see separately, can run my code, can be used from this Visual Studio. Now you see a menu called terminal, and if you say new terminal, it essentially opens that same command prompt in the same path. So you'll find that it will be documents Python 23rd of April. Now I can simply type Python or Py and the file name, because I'm in the same path, and you can see that it is giving me the same output. So now I don't have to come out of this Visual Studio Code every time I need to run or test this application. Now there is another way which I didn't show you last time, is by using a mouse click. So you can just go to the run, and you can see that run without debugging, Control F5 if you press, then it also does the same thing in the terminal window. If you haven't opened the terminal window, it will open a terminal window and it will run the python.exe and the Python file you have opened in the Visual Studio Code. So you will soon see that it will have the output coming up in that. So it takes some time for the first time because it does a lot of extension configuration which it is doing right now, but it will also do the same thing. So I prefer to write by myself, Py, second Py, so it becomes faster and easier. Otherwise you will see that this will be a bit more complex, in the sense like how long that whole command looks like, because it completes the whole path and then shows it. So this is how multiple ways of running things. So you can see that extension and all these things are getting thing here. So I'll just say, okay, let me just, you can see that it actually opened the whole Python exe and then also gave the full path of the second. So you can see the output coming in here, which is sometimes takes longer time. So I don't prefer this personally, running this from Visual Studio Code, because unless I'm doing a debugging step by step, I don't need this approach. So let me stop this. Okay, this unnecessarily slows the whole performance of the Visual Studio Code. So I will just go ahead and stop the whole thing and run it in a more native way. That means going into the command prompt and then writing it. So okay, let me close them. All right, now you can see that now this string. Now what happens if I put a comma here? Now one of the things you get to see is that, for example, if you have written email to multiple recipients, you might have used this semicolon, okay, semicolon after each email address, right? That's how we separate the email address. So we can say something like this. So which means that we have now a string, a whole string, but they are individually to be received or treated. Now I need to pick them one by one. Now, I can ask a computer science engineer to write an algorithm to actually figure out the semicolon delimiter and then split all the words. And he or she can actually write a whole algorithm based on how it should be treated and how things can be handled. And it will become multi-line approach, which means that you need to actually think how you approach this problem and solve. And we don't have to do it now because somebody have done it and created a library, and that's the beauty of programming language, because most common problems are already solved for you. So these are all not to be, let's say, to be discussed or things like that. So let me show you how to do that. Now you have this string. Now if you print, you will see that whole string as is, but I can create another variable called arr, and I can use this string and a function called split. So if I use this function split, okay, it takes a parameter what we can pass within this function, and that parameter is basically what is the delimiter. Okay, so it's either a dash or equals depending on how it is. So you put the delimiter as semicolon because that's how you can see that string can be splitted. Okay, now if I have this, I can print each individual element coming in an array. So think of it array as a stack of books. Okay, so you have a couple of books piled up in a columnar way, and you always start counting from 0. In programming language, when you have, let's say, set of things, that set starts with the 0th index. Okay, so that's one thing you need to remember. So you say that I want to read the first element of my array. So the output will be hello because that's the first word in the whole string. So let's see how that looks like. So I just open this. So you'll see that the string is getting printed, and second, the first element of the array is getting printed. Now, where those other elements are, they are in individual places. That means if you say 1, 2, 3, if you print them, and if you don't print the whole string, what happens, it will then show you the elements here. Okay, so I shouldn't be hiding this. I rather hide this one. So array was never created, so that's why it couldn't find the variable. Now you can see that hello world you are with space because there is a space. So you have to also handle how to do the space removal. You have seen yesterday that we have removed the spaces right from a string by doing a strip. So if you call a strip function, it will be removed. Just to show you that. So if you say strip, okay, that means that it's gonna go ahead and trim the whole thing. Okay, so if I go ahead and use the strip function, and that's the one of the use cases of the strip function. So you can see that they're getting squeezed. All the spaces before and after will be removed, and then it will become only that word which is more important to us. So that's how you basically read. Now you can see that I missed welcome because I did not call the array a number 4 element. So it did not show the welcome, and in these kind of cases where you have multiple such things, you can run something like loop, and instead of calling them with fixed integer value, you can say that I know there are 4 elements, so it will be 0 to 3. So hence call a function, a way to call this and replace this number with a dynamic value. So we'll see that when we learn about loop. That will be an interesting exercise, but for the time being, we'll hard code it and then put the number exactly as is. So you can see that it is now showing you the things in an individual thing. Now, let's say one of the things I wanted to show you over here in the string, there could be scenarios where you have a string available. You say hello all, and then instead of this all, I want to, let's say, replace this all by somebody, a name. Okay, so to do that, I can say, let's say, new str, new string, and then I can use this str and replace. This is another function, and it takes the old value and a new value, and it also takes a couple of additional let's say parameter option, like from how many replacements you need, from where you want to start, etc. So we'll not go into that level, but if you just type the all exactly as is and say John, so it will be replaced by John in the new string. Now if you print the new string, and a lot of time this replacement is required because you might find that there is a typing mistake, and because of some automation or something like that that kept happening again and again, and you might have done that in many different editor, that to replace a specific word by another word, or a digit by another digit. So you do the same thing programmatically over here. Okay, so it's a very common thing in programming language to replace a specific value with another value. So you can just print the new string, and you will see that new string having John in the output. So let me run this, and you can see that hello all was the old one and hello John is the new one, because I replaced all with John. Now if I try to replace something which doesn't exist in the string, let's say all A, that doesn't really exist in the string. Now what happens in the Python, it doesn't do anything. It neither throws you an error. Okay, so it is kind of very safe to use. If in case you don't have that word or letter available, you still can try to replace it, and if it couldn't find, it will not do anything. So it will just simply print whatever it was before, because nothing got replaced. Okay, so the replace function is one of the safest functions to use in the string context. Now there are many times I may need to write multiple lines of, let's say, thing. So in scenarios like those, if I have this and then another string, let's say I say hello all, and then I put a string 1, good evening, morning, or say so. If I say so, there are two things, right? If I print one by one, it will just simply print one by one, 2 lines, because I printed them one by one. So you will see that hello good day getting printed. Now if you have multiple such lines, let's say you are writing the whole letter, then it will be very inconvenient for you to define 50 variable for 50 lines and then print 50 times. This is not the way to do it. So Python allows us to do multi-line in a bit different way. So we use one variable, that is string, and then we'll use something like triple double quote. Okay, so this is for multi-line. So triple double quote allows us to type anything within it, and then it is considered as single string. So I say hello all, and I say hope you are all doing well. I say regards. So this is what I wanted to drop a note to all of you. So if I have to define only one string variable and then create a multi-line approach like this, then it becomes very convenient because I don't have to deal with multiple variables. Neither I need to print them again and again. So you can see that it is getting printed here as is. We can do a little bit of formatting also, but you get the sense like you can handle multi-lines quite effectively. The only thing is that instead of single double quote, you use three double quotes and then wrap the whole string around that double quote. That way you will be able to write multiple lines in the Python source code. Okay. Now we have done replacement. We have done multiline. What is also important, like in a big text, how do you find a specific word letter or a word? Okay. So imagine that this is text, right? And you want to search something like AR. How many times do you have AR? We have AR in regards, AR in R. So in two places. Now to find AR in this whole string programmatically, you define a variable, let's say X, and you say AR in str. Okay. And then if you print a X, let's see what happens. It says true. That means AR does exist in the string. So it finds, but it doesn't find the exact location or things. Then you have to write a bit more logic behind it to show the exact thing. But you are making sure that your search phrase is available in that string, right? So if you have a large article and you want to find a specific word of that, you typically use control find or find keyword from the menu and then find the word. Instead of doing that, you can programmatically also find in Python. So when you have stream of, let's say, characters coming into your system, and then you want to find a specific keyword or set up keywords, you can use this approach to find from a large scale string. Right. Now I want to show you for a bit more about formatting. This is not how we need to think about formatting, but we have been printing this for quite significantly. So if you say something like this, let me delete the whole thing and start something like name, and I say phone, some dummy number, an email. So there are three things. Now I want to show it in a better readable format than just by printing name, phone, and email. I can do that. I can just print name, I will print name, but I don't know what is this. Is this a phone number or a name? I need to interpret that based on the output. Now I want to be very explicit about it. To do that, I can just print something like this. Now, one of the things you can print is that by concatenating the string. So how do you concatenate string? Using a plus sign. So we have seen that if you use a plus sign, if you use it along with float or integer, it basically does addition. But if you use it with string, then it basically joins the string. So if you say the name is, and then space, semicolon, space, this space also has to be explicitly given by you. Now if I say name like this, now this will print with a little information before the name. So you will say name is this. Now so on and so forth. You can just say plus, and then you can also give a space for better readability. That's okay. So if you say that and then put a dot, that means after the name the dot will appear, and then there's a space, the email is, And then this time I use the email as variable. So you can see that I can now print the whole two variables in a same print statement, but with a little formatting. So you have this email is email, that blah blah blah. So you can do that. Now it can become very complex because the more value you need to print, more it becomes complex, and then your plus space and all these things, you need to test it how it looks, you need to run it, all these things comes in. Instead of that, we can use some sort of placeholder, and that's very convenient. Now you can make a single string like this. Email is this, and then you can say phone number mentioned, and then the phone number. So this is how the string would look like. Now, because I'm going to place this variable inside this single string, I can use something called string literal. Okay, and that is in Python like this. So you just put a placeholder, and you use this placeholder everywhere you need to print a specific variable. So you can print one variable to multiple times. That's not a problem. So let me go ahead and then use them. Now you need to pass them what all these things, because you put a placeholder, it is sequential. So you need to first provide the value of the first placeholder. Okay, so that is name, and then you have to say email, that's a variable name on top, and then you have phone. Now you notice here I'm not printing them as sequentially as it is declared in a variable, but the way I want to format this whole string. So the phone number comes after email, whereas in the variable the phone number is before the email, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, it's just a placeholder. So you can see that now I will be able to print them all. The only thing is that you need to take care of the sequence. Okay, so I'm sorry, so I just need to replace this with a message. So let me just put a variable called message. Okay, and then I need to remove this and print the message, and use a function called format. Okay, so in this I need to provide the placeholder variable names. So that'll be name, email, and phone number. Okay, now this will print the formatted string. Now you can see that it is saying that my name is this, the email ID is this, and the phone number is this. So because I kind of mentioned the location, right? Now if I switch the, let's say, the name with email, okay, so if I just remove this name from here and put it in the middle instead of the first, now this format will break, because then it will show me the email as name and the email becomes name. So it basically swaps the value. So you can see that it is coming as name, which is not right, and this is also not right. So they are gone. Now in those cases you can use the place. So we can say that the name is this, no matter how I pass. So it is right now in the position number 1. Now remember, in the sequence for programming language, it always starts from 0, 1, 2. So we have 0, that is email, 1 is name, and the phone is 2. So the name is 1, so I press 1, email is 0, phone is 2. If I say so, then it will now print the right sequence. I don't have to change it. What I made sure that the sequence of the parameter passed in the format is the sequence in my message body as a placeholder. So the placeholder index really matters here when you use index base. Now if you want to print them in the both the places, like in both name, in email as well as in name, you can use the same number. So that's absolutely fine. You can do that, right? So This is how you basically format a long string where you need to place multiple variables. Now, the most crude way of doing things is by providing a string concatenation logic, but you can actually do it also in a more elegant way, that is by doing a message format, that is format function which is part of the string type. So any string dot format, and if there is a placeholder, you can pass the placeholder values one by one, and it looks very neat and clean. Okay, it's easy to read, easy to interpret, and a human brain can process it so that you know if there is anything to be changed, you can change it easily, right? So that is what the whole purpose is. Now, there is another problem which people might encounter is when there is something like quote. So if I say Gandhi said, and then I need a double quote here. If I try to put a double quote here, it basically ends the whole string. Now to print something which has a double quote, you have in every programming language something called as escape character, and in Python the escape character is this one. So if you place this escape character, then it becomes the double quote, not the string identifier double quote, but double quote as a text. Okay, simple text, no programming language feature, no special thing. So it loses all the special capability, right? And then violence is evil. Something like this, a made up statement, not definitely not by Gandhi. Okay, so you can see that I can now print a double quote within a double quote. Okay, this is quite common. You might need to do that. If you now try to run this, there is nothing to be printed because I did not print the quote. Now let me just print the quote. That string only. Now you'll find that Gandhi says violence is evil. If you try to put this double quote without this backward slash, then it will break the string in middle. So let me just try to remove this, and you will find that the Visual Studio Code will start complaining about it. Okay, and if you try to run this file, it will also get an error like syntax error, because it understood that everything ended here. Then what is this doing after this? So you need to be very explicit about this, that this is not the statement end, this is rather a double quote as a double quote. Okay, so that's how we say, let's say, remove the special behavior of a special character. All right, now this is mostly the string thing. But there are many more things within the string which you can play around and understand. But I now will briefly touch on something very important in the programming context, that is Boolean value. Okay, Boolean data type, true or false. It's a very simple one. Okay, it has only two values, true and false, but it is very significant when you do write instruction in any programming language. Okay, so let's say that you have got something like I equals to 10, j equals to 9. Now I will talk about the condition later, but in this case, if you consider normal English, let's say if, and then if you say if I greater than j, simple mathematical calculation, I just try to type then and I do the calc. Now this is not Python, okay? So don't misunderstood that with Python, just a idea. So if you want to, let's say, check if I is greater than j, then you print like or do some calculation. Let's say if you are doing subtraction and you don't want a negative result, and you only do if the first value is greater than the second value, that if that's the condition, you do this calculation, otherwise you say that wrong values. Okay, something like that. Pure requirement from any scenario. Now, if you have to do that, you need to condition. We'll come to that condition a little later. But if you simply print, Python also is very elegant language because it's very simple. If you try to say I greater than j, it gives you some sort of output. It'll tell you whether it is right or wrong, okay, true or false. Now, if you try to run this and it says true, which is true, and then if you say 90 and run it, this will give you false because it is false. I is not greater than j, which is clear from the very simple value. Okay, so that's how the Boolean data type comes in. Now let me put this print statement into a variable. Okay, so instead of print, if I say bln equals to, okay, and then I print bln, it will show you the same output, false. Now, one of the things I can do when I put a value in a variable, I can check its type by calling a type function, which is a built-in Python function. And if I say so, I missed a parenthesis. So if I say so, this will basically give you a type Boolean. So you can see that it is coming. So let me just clear it up, otherwise it looks junk. You find that it will show you class bool. Okay, that's a Boolean type, true and false. It has only two outputs. So the Boolean is so important, and we will need it again and again in when we write step-by-step instructions, and this is absolutely important. Now coming to the follow-up thing, which I kind of tried to put it in a simple English, that if statement. If you use this now if statement in a Python way of doing it. So if I now say if, now you can see that if becomes blue. Now anything which when you run write in Visual Studio Code becomes blue, that means it's a keyword. Okay, so it is a keyword which is basically getting compiled or will get compiled when you compile, right? So it is a keyword. So you cannot create a variable as if. So if you try to create a variable, let's say if equals to hello, this will start complaining. Okay, so you can see that there is a squiggly, say violence is giving some error. Now if I just hide this and try to run this, this is not going to run. Okay, so if I try to run this, it says that if hello, it doesn't find any logic. However, in a simple term, you can declare a variable like this. If you just don't have if but have if1, it is absolutely fine that Python now understands it. But the moment you put if, it is not going to work because if is a keyword. So that's why you cannot use a keyword to declare a variable. So that's why it is important. And then the sign blue clearly tells it's a keyword within a function reserved for something different. Okay, now if I say I greater than j, so I'm checking if I greater than j is true. Now you don't say then here, but you put a colon and you print saying that this is greater than this. So this is I and j, that's the value, and I can say format and then I pass I, j. Let's see whether it works. Otherwise I have to convert into string. Okay, let me hide them. Hide this. I don't need to print. it is not greater than j, so it did not come. So let me replace this 90 with 9. Now you will find that this will show up in the output, and there is an error because the format has a problem. So let me print again. 10 is greater than 9. I just put a little formatting to clearly identify. So it's clearly saying that 10 is greater than 9, but the moment I put 90, it doesn't show anything. Now, as an end user, I don't see whether I don't understand whether there's a problem or not. So I need to be more explicit because computers are dumbs because they don't think like a human. So you need to be explicit and say something like else. What if this doesn't fulfill? You print saying is not j, and then you call this format function and pass on I and j as their parameters, and you end the statement. Okay, now if I run this, now it prints 10 is not greater than 90. Okay, if you do not have these two lines, it will simply not print anything because it did not fulfill. Now you change this to 100, and it obviously will come here and print that I is greater than j because that is true. When it is true, it will print. When it is not true, it will come to else. Now you can have steps, right? So you can check whether I is greater than j, whether I is less than j, whether I is equal to j, all these conditions. So you can be more explicit. So you can keep adding the if condition one after another and check things. So for example, if you want to check the I equals to j, you have to do this. Let me put another condition. So if I is equal to, if you have a equal, now in programming language you don't use single equals. When you have to match two values, you use double equals. Okay, so that means that you're trying to see whether they are equal or not. So if I now run this, the output definitely is not equal because 100 is not equal to 90. The moment I replace this 100 to 90, then it'll print me the equal value. There is no magic, but I'm just trying to show you how you put things into programming language when you have to define a condition. Now, sometimes you need to also check things like not equal to. So if I say that is the condition, so then you use this sign, exclamation and equals to. That means not equal to. So they are equal, definitely it will be equal to, or so the message is not correct. So I'll say, let me use this proper one. Okay, so now what I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to see whether I is not equal to j, and to do that, let me just change the value, and this definitely is not equal to j. So you can see that 91 is not equal to 90. So I'm a bit explicit and checking whether it is not equal to. Sometimes you want to also, just like greater than less than, if you want to say that I is greater than or equal to. So this is a or condition. Okay. I is greater or equal to j. Okay. I just print them. Okay, so let me run again. Now it's a 91 is greater or equal to 90, which means that the moment you put it 90, this will also come into the true block. That means it will print 90 is greater or equal to 90, so which is also right. Now you can see that you are trying to match both the conditions. So if I is greater or equal to j, then do the calculation. If that is the logic, then you can combine them together in this kind of thing. So greater than equal to, less than equal to, only greater than, only less than, only equal, and not equal are the typically used comparison function or comparison operator in the condition for Python. Okay, so you will encounter with this kind of requirements when you start using the condition in a much more realistic way. Okay, but this is very simple syntax. As you can see that I don't have to do many things, but I basically can check things on my own. Now computer is all about data structure, which means that it is a lot of information in form of, let's say, free flowing text. Now you need to structure and put those text into proper way. It's like a library. If you consider having all the books at your home and they're not properly placed, it is really hard to find the book you need at that moment. Okay, so you need to create some sort of, let's say, grouping logic, or put them either in alphabetically arranged order by author or by subject, whatever way which is convenient. And in any academic library, you see those stickers having some number. They actually mean something about the subject and the rack that book belongs to. And this is common for everything you do today, right? Whenever you place things, you need to place it in a proper way. If you are setting up your home, you know where to put what, so that whenever there is a need, you can find them. And that is what happens in programming language, also in computer. So there are a lot of data in form of binary, and they need to be placed in a structured way, and we'll talk about that. When we talk about a lot of data, we think of it as a collection. So let's see what are the different types of collections we can have in Python. And let's start with a simple one, that is list. So imagine that you have alphabets, all the alphabets A to Z, and you don't need to create, let's say, 26 variables to define 26 alphabet. If you have to do that, or there is a class, there are 50 students in the class, and you don't have to create 50 variable to put all the students' name. It's not convenient, not practical. So how to do that? To do, let's say I say names. Let's use names rather than alphabets. This makes more sense. And then I can use this square bracket. And when I use the square bracket, I can say these are the names, let's say. So that you can see easily from the programming language that I have got 4 names. And if I just print the whole list, that is names, if I say print names, if I print them and I come back and run it, you see that it's getting printed as is. Okay, this is just dumping the whole variable as is. That's not the way I want to print things or handle it, but it gives you an idea that it is accepted in Python, that there is no error when I try to do that. And just a check. Now if I try to show you the type, you will see that it shows you the type called list. Okay, as the name suggests, it is basically this. So think of it like you are writing a shopping list. So that's how the list is top to bottom, right? So like that, there are multiple ways by which you can group things together. Now, one of the benefits of having different types of thing is that other thing doesn't allow certain type of activity. For example, if you use list and let's use names here and names there. So I use names one, that is list. Okay, this is, let me also put a note, list. Okay, and then I define this names two a little differently. Now instead of this square bracket, I can use this first bracket. Okay, this also works, and this type of thing is known as set. Now what is the major difference between these two? Okay, let me show you the type also by figuring the type out by programmatically. So it'll say tuple. Set is tuple. So the set or tuple and the list, which is the top, right? Tuple and list are, let's put it that way, two different way of declaring. The only catch here is that list can accept duplicate values. So I can have keys again, but if I try to put this thing into this one, it'll start complaining. So you can see when I try to see that it is, sorry. Okay, no, sorry, I made a mistake. So I had to move into another thing. But the whole idea of list and tuple is that how it plays things in the memory. Okay, not the duplicate one. Duplicate comes next. So I made a little switch between list and tuple and set, but I'll come to that. But the whole idea is that they all, both of them allow duplicate. Which one don't allow duplicate is this one. So let me put another list also into the screen. Okay, so this is tuple. So let me put names, and let me put a name alongside with that. Okay, so that we know what we are trying to do here. So it is list, tuple, and set. Now the set is this one. Okay, and this is where you are not allowed to let me try to simply run this. There will be no output. There will be no output, but it basically allows no duplicate. Okay, so you can just print them one by one to see the type. So if I say type and name tuple, now all of them solves the same purpose, right? Stacking up all the data. Now depending on the performance and the kind of data you are trying to do, you choose the one. So that's something we'll talk about it, but let me just show you the types in the screen. If I just print them all, you can see that it shows you list, tuple, and set. So they are all holding the same set of values, but they are showing different types because I declared them using different syntax. Okay, that's the only difference here. Okay, and as I said that for list, it is ordered and changeable. Okay, which means that you can replace a value within a list by another value after you define the list. Now, the tuple does not allow you to change the value after you declare the thing. So you think of it like a fixed set of values, an alphabet. So if you see that English alphabet A to Z, all of them as is, once it is done, you don't need to change, neither you are allowed to change. So make it a readable list. Okay. And then the third one, which is set, it is unordered and unindexed, and no duplicates are allowed basically. So if you try to print the value of the set. So you say names set. Let's see what happens if I print that. You notice that set has got two keeps value, but it got eliminated when I printed that. And that is why I said that duplicates are not allowed. If you print the names list, okay, just to verify, names list, you will find kids coming twice because they are allowed. Okay, same thing with the tuple, you will see kids coming twice because it is allowed. Only in the set you will not find the kids coming again after the first appearance because Python will simply decline. Okay, so it doesn't allow. So when you try to store, it simply decline. So it doesn't have that. So you always have this kind of requirement depending on how you want to store the data. If you don't want to store a duplicate value, let's say a student and the roll number, it has to be only once in a list. So if you have the same student and same roll number appearing in the list, it will be ignored because we cannot have two students with the same name, same roll number. Okay, so you can have those kind of use cases depending on how you think. Now let me also show you another little complex type of data. And as I mentioned, the student and the roll number, that's called dictionary. As the name suggests, it is a key value pair. So if I say the dictionary, just a variable name, okay, you can give any name, and then it has something like this. Now it's not set, but when you declare a dictionary, so you have to say what is the key and what is the value. So you write like this. So this is probably, let's say, student and roll number, roll number and student name, and then I say 2. Now you can see that this is also a list, but it has two values. So if I just print type dictionary and then try to print it, it's gonna go ahead and show the type as dictionary type. Now dictionary is a key value pair, so let me also show you how that raw data looks like, and we will quickly come to the conclusion of this thing, after which we'll go to the loop in our next class. But let me show you. So you can see that it is something like set, but it has two values. So you can think of like a matrix, and then you have a 2-column matrix, and then you have like a row and value, just like how you put data in Excel, right? So you have one column, another value, and if you have 2 columns, you can store the data programmatically in Python. So this is about collection. So we went a bit fast, but what is more exciting about collection is that how you read the value. So for that we need to first understand how loop works. Okay, how do you work with loop, and then we'll use this set, tuple, list, dictionary, create them and loop through that in our next class. Okay, so with this, thank you very much and have a great day.